Hello, scholars. Let's look at rounding numbers. After this and after some practice, you should be able to round numbers to any given place value. Here we go. Don't forget about this chart that you have, and if you don't have, a quick review right now wouldn't be terrible. Remembering again that these are whole numbers that are greater than 1, and these are numbers that are less than 1. They are parts of whole. So, and we read this decimal point as end. Here we go. So stop and think, our little friend here, why do we round numbers? Think about what a reason for this might be, why we might do this, when is it helpful, and then of course, how do we do it, and making sure that we understand to do it correctly. So bring some thoughts back to class with you. So here are some steps. Make sure you have these steps down because sometimes steps are helpful, but understanding them is even more important. So the steps for rounding numbers is to find the place value. Remember, that's the name of the location that you are rounding to and underline that digit. Once you determine the place that you want to round to, you are going to look to the right of the place that you're rounding, and then you have two choices. A, determine if the number to the right is 5 or greater, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9. If that's the case, you're going to raise the score. That means we are going to end up rounding up that place. If the number to the right is 4 or less, 4, 3, 2, 1, or 0, we're going to let it rest. So a nice little rhyming game there. That means we are just going to stop, and whatever say was rounding this number, we're going to just cross off whatever's at the end. And I'll show you this with an example in the next few. So then, change all the digits to the right of the rounded number into zeros. Let's see an example. So if I had 313 and 74 hundredths, and I wanted to round that number to the tenths place, I underline the tenths place. I look to the right, which is the 4. 4 or less means let it rest. So I'm going to kind of cross off that 4. This rounds to 313 and 7/10. I could put zeros at the end, or I can leave it like that because it's already rounded to the tenths place. When these zeros is important is when you maybe in the whole number section. So say I wanted to round 215 and 2/10 to the tens place. I'd underline the tens, look to the right. Since it's 5 or more, I'd raise the score. This would be rounded then to 220, but I need that 0 here. I don't necessarily need to put another one here, but I definitely need it there to make sure it still is 220. So some examples, a couple slides here where I will do one, you'll do one with me, and then you're going to pause and you're going to try. So follow along for the first one. Round the following numbers to the tens place. So again, identifying the tens. So I know this is the tens, this is the tens, and this is the tens. So we're going to do I do, we do, you do. So I will do this first one. That's the tens, and I look to the right, 5 or more, so I'm going to raise the score. 16 rounded to the tens would be approximately 20. Again, I don't need the zeros after the decimal. Next one, see if you can try it. 239 and 643 thousandths. Look to the right. 5 or more, raise the score. This becomes 240. If you really want to, you can do that, but it really doesn't make a difference after the decimal. Last one, can you do it? Round to the tens place, look to the right. 4 or less, let it rest. 12 just simply rounds down to 10. All right, keep it going here. Round the following numbers to the ones place. I do, we do, you do. So the ones place is here, 2. I look to the right. 5 or more, raise the score. So this 2 rounds up to a 3. Again, I could do this, but I don't need to. Next one, see if you can do it. The ones place is the 5. Look to the right. 5 or more, raise the score. This becomes 46. One more. The ones place. We have a 0. I look to the right. 4 less, let it rest. It's still 0. This just means this is closer to 0 as a whole number than it is to one whole. All right, I do, we do, you do for rounding to the tenths place. Remember, tenths place is right here. So tenths place, looking to the right, 4 less, let it rest. This simply becomes 32, and I could just write it as 32. Since it says tenths place, it's kind of nice to show the tenths place though too. Tenths place, look to the right, 5 or more, raise the score. This is rounded to 10 and 4 tenths. Last one, tenths, look to the right, pause, go ahead and try it on your own. 5 or more, raise the score. This is close to 4 tenths. Closer to 4 tenths than it is to 3 tenths. So it's just kind of looking on a number line, which one is it closer to of that value? All right, one more, let's do this. I do, we do, you do for the hundredths place now. So I'm gonna label the hundredths place. I'm gonna look to the right. I see it's a 5, which means I'm going to raise the score. 259 10,000ths is closer to 3 hundredths than it is to 2 hundredths. That's what you're deciding. Which is it closer to? Hundredths place. Look to the right. 4 or less, let it rest. This simply is closer to 5 and 12 hundredths than it is to 5 and 13 hundredths. It's a 5, but it kind of looks like a 6. Last one, hundredths place. Oh, this one's a little tricky. I look to the right and I see an 8. Well, that 8 would make that 9 a 10, but actually goes into the next digit. So this is kind of tricky because you can't put 10 here and 10 here. So instead, you're rounding up. That 8 makes that 9 a 10, which makes that the next digit, which makes that the next place value, right? Because we know there are only 10 digits, and every time you reach a 10, you're in the next place value. So we round it up here, and we actually end up with 13. So that is kind of interesting. Round to the nearest thousandths place. Label my thousandths. Look to the right. 4 or less, let it rest. This number is closer to 14 and 78 thousandths than it is to 79 thousandths. Oh, looking again, we have a 9, which rounds us to 10, which rounds us to 8. So we end up with 3 and 280 thousandths, which is the same as 3 and 28 hundredths. Can you do it? Thousandths place to the right. 4 or less, let it rest. We simply stop at 3. You could put a 0 here, or you could simply write it to the thousandths. That's it. That's all, folks. Look back at these notes. Go back and check anything. Rewatch any sections. And you're welcome to try more practice problems. But we can go over questions. Make sure you write them down or any ideas you have. Have a great day.